OMGs, boys, girls, in-betweeners, welcome back. We're into part 2 of my How to Juri guide, and this is probably going to be the last part of this little How to Juri guide, because I don't want to turn this into an advanced video, I don't want to turn it into a combo video. I feel that there are plenty of other videos on YouTube which service those quite perfectly. There's a lot of high-level stuff out there. I just feel like if you're just picking up the character and you just want to learn basic things about how they work, I think there's a little bit of a knowledge gap out there, because people just expect you to figure that out yourself. So I'm here to help you guys out with that if you're interested in picking up Juri. So, picking up from part 1, I just want to cover some of the things that we haven't done before. Now, you'll notice that I'm back on the boring old training stage. Unfortunately, I had some problems with my computer and had to remove some of the mods, so that's not too bad though, because I need some lines on the ground here to show you how her Kara throw works. So for those of you who don't know what her Kara throw is, it's basically a throw that extends the range of her regular throw. So you can see here that I'm standing on this line right here, this one right here, and when I press throw, she doesn't move 1 inch, doesn't budge. She can't believe it, no way. So what we can do is we can extend the range of her throw by hitting standing medium punch first, because as you can see, standing medium punch brings her forward gradually every time that she does it. So what we do is we hit standing medium punch a split second before we hit throw, which will cancel her out of the startup frames of her throw into a Kara throw. And you can now see that she actually moves forward when she's doing her throw. And you can see in the input window that I'm actually hitting 3 buttons instead of 2. So that's just it doesn't have a huge increase in range. There are other characters that have better Kara throws than Juri does. Kara moves, like Sagat has a fantastic Kara Dragon Punch, things like that. But it's just an extra tool that you can use if you are trying to get into that sort of grabbed range, you're not quite there. Second thing that I want to discuss with you guys is her basic combos. So we kind of covered this a little bit last time. We covered what her most basic of bread and butter combos is, which is a jumping medium kick, crouching medium kick into medium kick pinwheel, which looks like this. So that's 226 damage, so that's not too bad, and that's the most basic way to do any other combos, because you're just using 1 button 3 times in a slightly different fashion. And one of the other great things about this move is that it also crosses up. So you can still use the jumping medium kick, I should say, to cross up if you actually want to hit. And goes to the commentator. There we go. So you can cross up with that. So you can do it from either side, which is pretty good. And you'll get 226 damage, which isn't too bad for a bread and butter standard combo. Now, if you want to build up the damage from that, if you want to go a little bit more complicated, the next thing that you want to learn is you want to lead with a jumping heavy kick. So you want to lead with this move instead. And you also want to use a heavy kick version of her pinwheel instead of her medium. So you want to go jumping heavy kick, crouching medium kick, and heavy kick pinwheel, which looks like this. So now we've now gone from 226 damage to 272 damage. So there's about a 30 point, actually more than that. My math is bad because it's really early in the morning here. That's actually more of a 50 point increase, I should say. So, just for doing 1 different button. So that's probably the best reason to use this version of the combo once you feel comfortable with using the medium kick version instead. Now the only drawback to this is that the jumping heavy kick obviously does not cross up. So if you want to cross up, that's here on the front, you have to use the medium kick version instead. You can also do it from light kick as well, but timing is a little bit more jank, and you have to use light kicks. So you have to do it pretty low. So that's the most basic of a bread and butter combos, and there are 3 different ways that you can use them. Now, if you want to extend the damage of the combo beyond that 270 that we had before, you have to have a fireball stored. Now, the reason for that is, as we discussed last time, is that releasing a fireball allows her to reset her link priority, basically. So you can do a crouching medium, a fireball, then another crouching medium. So that will allow us to extend the combo quite significantly. So we'll go from 270 odd damage to 326. Now 326, for not using any meter in a bread and butter combo, is pretty damn good. It'll be hard to press that to beat that with other characters who aren't just heavy hitters like Higo, Honda, that kind of thing. So, okay, so that's how you do that combo. Now, there are some other combos that we can do. She has some basic sort of poke-based combos which you can do, which just work as good hit confirms, which we can get into a little bit later, just after this. So, basic one of that is doing crouching light, standing light, crouching medium into pinwheel, which looks a little something like this. When you do it right. There we go. So we got 194 damage from that. Moving on to hit confirms. Now, if you don't know what a hit confirm is, a hit confirm is basically you want to get to the big damage, obviously. Now, the problem with big damage moves in a game like Street Fighter is that big damage moves have a lot of startup usually. They usually leave you quite vulnerable to being attacked, and they're usually being before and after the move if it's not blocked. So, you know, a heavy pinwheel obviously does the most damage, but I don't want to be throwing this out all day because it starts up very slow, it finishes very slow, and if it's blocked, I'm open for quite a long time for being punished. So this is why we do our combos. We do because we want to be able to get to that damage safely and know that we can cancel into that when it's not going to be able to be blocked. Now, what a hit confirm basically means is that you're doing a bunch of hits beforehand in order to make sure that it's actually going to connect. So this is why this combo works very well, because we're doing 2 hits before we actually know that the crouching medium kick is going to connect. And if obviously your reflex is a bit slower, you could even wait till the crouching medium kick connects before you decide to go into the pinwheel. So that's why those kind of moves work very well. Now, what happens if the move gets blocked? Well, then you have different options available to you, because you can go into that move and go, oh, okay, I'm 2 hits in, this guy is blocking, he's not eating my move, what am I going to do? I don't want to stop in the middle of it because that's going to leave me vulnerable. I want to finish this move safely, and that's where her Fireball Store comes in. Her Fireball Store has a few unique properties to it that we didn't cover last time in the video. First and foremost is that her Fireball Store acts as a fireball unto itself. Now this is the Fireball Store, not the Fireball Release. This is the actual upswing motion of her leg. Watch what happens when Ryu throws out a fireball, and I use Fireball Store at the same time. She eats it, and I'm storing fireballs at the same time for release. So you can do this all day long. You can store up 3 fireballs, and be able to nullify any fireball that gets thrown at you if you can time it properly. It's obviously a fairly tight timing window, but it's a tool that's available to you. So, going back to what I was saying earlier, the reason this is so good is because a Fireball Store is practically safe on block. Fireball Store is actually -1 on block, which means they have 1 frame, in a game that's running at 60 frames per second, so they have 1/60th of a second to be able to retaliate. Now obviously this means they have virtually no time to retaliate. There are characters who can do it. Akuma especially has a couple of 0 frame moves that activate that have no startup at all. They're active from the very first frame that they begin, so that's obviously going to be a little bit of a problem. But for 90% of the cast, this move is completely safe on block. So what that means is if we set our friend, the train dummy, to just stand, but block randomly, we can alter our game plan depending on what he does. So that's what happens when we block, and we have a Fireball Sword now. And on hit, we can obviously go through with our regular combo. So that's how hit confirms in this game work. You go through for a couple of moves in a chain, which are basically a block string. A block string is a set of moves which cannot be interrupted while you're doing them because they have too much hit stun. So you can go through with your block string, and at the end of it you can do a move which is safe to make you safe. So, Juri has a few different block strings which she can use. Now, I want to stress, first and foremost, that out of all her block strings, very few of them are actually completely safe or what are called true block strings. We'll actually set him to all block, just so I can show you what these are. Because these moves will actually combo on hit. If we take these off, put it on my block. So you can tell that these are combo because they will combo on hit. So you have that obviously, and we have our bread and butters that we were talking about before. But they are not true block strings, which means that while they will look like something which can't be interrupted if the opponent has a move that works fast enough, or works fast enough and especially has enough invincibility, it's going to cause problems for you. So this is basically, these are sort of moves that you want to use at your own peril, because if we go to all block now, right, this combo with lights it's a combo on hit, it's not a block string on block. It can be interrupted, and a lot of characters who have dragon punches, like Ryu or Ken, will actually interrupt those. So you want to be very careful when using this move, because it's fine, you can go into, obviously you can go into a block string like I just saw there, where I finished it with a fireball. That fireball will make her very safe. But between the jumping light kick and the jumping, the crouching light kick, she can actually be dragon punched. So you want to be very careful that basically if you get dragon punched by this once, you want to stop using it right away. Same thing goes for her medium kick version. Yeah, obviously that's very unsafe if you go through with the pinwheel. If you go through the store, again, the store is safe, but the jumping medium and crouching medium are not a true block string. So the reason I'm showing you these, even though they're not true block strings, is that a lot of people that you meet online will not know this, and they will not punish them. It's just that you need to be aware that if they do punish them, you need to stop doing them right away, because they obviously know that they're not true block strings. The only thing that actually is a true block string from a jumping attack is a jumping heavy kick. That actually is a block string. So you can jumping heavy kick, crouching into fireball, and that will make you completely safe against a character like Ryu. That's fine, but that's what you need to be aware of, is that is pretty much the only true block string that we're going to cover here today. So use the other two, by all means. I use them all the time, but use them to your own peril, and just be aware that if you get knocked out of it once, stop using it, because your opponent is definitely wise to you. Alright, now going back to fireball stores for Juri. The other thing that you can actually do with her fireball stores is that the opponent knows, if they know anything about Juri, they know that she can obviously do her low, medium, and high fireball. Which means if you store 3 times, they're going to assume that you have all 3 fireballs stored. Now, what you can do to actually throw them off is that you can actually release them at different times. Now, we already covered last time that if you let go in the air, you've actually lost all your stores while you're in the air, and that's fine. That's an easy way to let go of your stores. But the other thing you can do is you can actually do you can store one fireball while releasing another one. And what it will do is it will allow you to store fireballs to your opponent's perceptions infinitely. Watch what happens. If you look at the inputs on the left-hand side of the screen, I'll do a light fireball, then I'll do a medium fireball. I now have 2 fireballs stored. What I can do is that I can let go of the light fireball, obviously not like that, while I'm storing the medium one. And watch the inputs on the side of the screen. I'm now letting go of one as I store the other, and to your opponent, they now have no idea how many fireballs you actually have stored. You only have 1 stored at any given time, but at any given time I can now go from 1 to 2 to 3 and now have 3 fireballs stored. So it's a great way to just add to the mind games that you have with your opponent, because if they're guessing what fireballs you have stored at any given time, you can just start doing this. I've got 4 now stored when I only have 3. So that's the case, is that is just a little trick that you can use to just psych your opponent out a little bit if they are getting wise to what kind of fireballs you are storing. You can also use it if you're at full screen to actually just build meter. Like if we turn the meter off here, set the combo gauge to normal, and we'll just use our super to burn all of it. Right, we now have no meter. I'm now just sitting here I'm just building meter for free. Takes 13 stores to get a fireball, if I'm not mistaken. Feel free to rewind that and count. Leave a comment if I'm wrong. But yeah, that's just a cute little trick that you can use with her fireballs to actually get a little bit more just mind games and mileage out of your EX meter going. So we'll just turn that back on. Training options. Alright. Now, some other tricks that you should be aware of is that, and this is again something that we didn't cover in the first video, is some of her normals actually have airborne properties. Now, this is both a good and a bad thing, because Juri has several moves which actually make her airborne for a short period of time. And now the reason this is good is that a lot of characters with grabs, like grapplers like Hugo, Zangief, any of those sort of characters who rely on command throws to be able to beat you, unless they're using an anti-air command throw, they won't be able to grab you while you're in the air. It's just a basic property of the game that you cannot grab people while they're in the air unless you're using an anti-air throw. So, moves that make her airborne, she actually has several thereof. Her close standing medium kick will actually make her airborne, I believe, from the first frame. I tried to find some data on that, but I couldn't find any before I was making this video, but I'm pretty sure, not this version, not the FAR version, that won't make her airborne. It's this one, because she switches feet. If you watch the start of it, she goes from having her front leg up to having her front leg on the ground, which means she switches feet, putting her airborne for a split second. The next one that makes her airborne is her overhead, which you can see quite clearly, which is forward and medium kick. Obviously very airborne during that move. Her standing heavy kick from a distance, if you do it up close, you get this version which doesn't work. However, from a distance, obviously quite airborne for a good portion of that move. And last one which actually makes her airborne is her standing heavy punch, which you can see here. Obviously again very airborne for that portion of the move. Now, the thing to be wary of is that, as I said, characters have anti-air grabs, which is bad. Especially one character in particular, by the name of his name, now I'm trying to think of him, the Khan, yes! The Khan has an anti-air ultra, which basically has him lying on the ground waiting for you to do something stupid. You need to be very careful not to do her overhead or anything else during that move because you will get caught by it. I want to talk about her wake-up options, because obviously you're going to spend a lot of the game getting knocked down. So when you get knocked down, you have a lot of characters have, options available to them. Now the first and foremost for this game is that at any time, for any character, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter whether you're playing a top tier character, it doesn't matter whether you're playing DJ or Dan or anyone else who's considered to be bottom tier, the smartest thing you can ever do when you wake up is block. Because if you do anything else, you're leaving yourself open to being punished further. The smartest thing you can do is block and retreat and basically reset from there. That said, there are certain times where you will need to actually do reversals on Wake Up because your opponent simply isn't respecting you enough. If they're just attacking you on Wake Up because they feel that you won't do anything, you need to obviously put them on notice and say, okay, look buddy, I do have these options available to me, I'm just not using them. That said, Juri has terrible Wake Up options because none of her moves, which you can use, let's put it back in the center. Ryu, come over here. None of her options are anything that she can use without meter. You can use her parry, but her parry has 3 frames of startup. So those are 3 frames that basically you are vulnerable to being hit if they are continuing to apply pressure. Now, next thing you can do is you can do her EX parry on Wake Up. That obviously requires you to burn 1 meter. The advantage of you doing her EX parry on Wake Up, it has 1 frame of startup. So basically straight away from the very first frame, or I should say from the second frame, she is able to counter a move rather than waiting until the 3rd frame. So it's the kind of move that you want to use if your opponent is jumping in on you, if they're telegraphing their attacks, if they're going for Wake Up attacks too often, you can use this as a relatively safe escape option. But as I said, it's not without its risks. You're obviously burning a meter, which is a precious resource, and it's also throwable. So it can be armor broken, and it can be thrown, and it can be baited. They can just sit there and do nothing and just wait for the recovery frames to take over. So those are things that you want to be aware of if you're going to use the EX parry. I'm quite fond of using the EX parry. I probably use it more than I should. In fact, I know I use it more than I should. But it is a fun move to use, and it is effective if they are going for wake up attacks, and also if they're going for safe jumps. If you know what a safe jump is, I'm not going to explain it because that would take a little bit too long. But if they're going for safe jumps, this move will basically beat out a safe jump, and it will beat an option select unless they time it absolutely perfectly. Unless it is the most meaty of meaty attacks, it will beat a safe jump. So that's another option which is available to you. Second thing which she can do off a knockdown, obviously, is her EX pinwheel, which Ryu is blocking here very thoughtfully, showing you the perils of using this on Wake Up. Now, what makes this good? I think I've demonstrated this enough. I can turn Ryu off there. What makes this move good is that it was buffed in Ultra. It is now invulnerable from frames 1 to 7, which means that she can't be knocked out of startup anymore, because it goes frames 1 to 7 are the startup frames. So from beginning from frame 8 onwards, she is projectile invincible, which we covered in the last video, and she is also obviously interactive frames, which makes her a lot harder to hit because she's busy hitting you. So basically her EX Pinwheel is her best offensive wake-up option. However, again, it is not without its drawbacks, because it can simply be blocked and countered, or it can be baited out and countered. It also, despite the fact that she is spinning 360 degrees, it will not hit behind her. It will hit above her, and it will hit in front of her in a 90-degree arc, but it will definitely not hit behind her. So that is something that you need to be aware of as well, depending on whether they're jumping in or not. She can be knocked out of it as well with a meaty attack, so again, it kind of depends on the character. It can trade in certain situations. It's her best wake-up option, but it's the best of a bad bunch. So again, most of the time you just want to really, when you wake up, just block. Just if you feel adventurous, backdash or do something else, but don't do moves unless you're certain your opponent is just disrespecting you. You can obviously use an FADC to get out of it, which again we'll go into a little bit later, but then you're burning even more meter just to try and make a move safe, which wasn't really safe in the first place. So don't do it, kids. Don't follow my example in my videos when I use it way too often, because it's a bad example. Alright, next on the list is Ultra 2 setups. So we covered in the last video that you can use her EX Pinwheel, or her EX Dive Kick, rather I should say. It's the most basic of basic setups for Juri, and for a very long time that was probably one of the only ways you can set it up, even though it was really unsafe. However, this is Ultra, and she does have some more options available to her, but before I go into those, I will go into just a couple of the other ones that we have. We also talked about the EX Pinwheel, using the EX Dive Kick I should say, to basically put them into a float state. So this obviously works as a great way to set up the move. Now, what I want to show you next is a way that you can do a little bit of a hit confirm on that. We can lead with a jumping medium punch and cancel the jumping medium punch into a dive kick, like so. You don't even need to use the EX version for this, you can just use the light kick. If you space it right. And it works as a hit confirm. So if you see the jumping medium punch connect, you know that the dive kick will connect because it is a combo, and you'll be able to do the Ultra from there. The downside to that is that it is not, again, a block string, because if they block the jumping medium punch, they can actually still be hit by the dive kick afterwards if they choose not to block. They can also reverse you, obviously, if they're fast enough to do so. So it's a little bit of a catch-22, because if they block the jumping medium punch, you're going to obviously assume they're going to block the dive kick which follows it. So you need to be careful about how you actually do this move, because sometimes the dive kick will go through, which is fine. It's great if the dive kick goes through, but you're not going to be ready to do the Ultra because you're just going to think it's not going to work unless you have the reflexes of a mongoose. So that sort of covers the jumping in sort of attacks for it. Now the next one that you can do is you can use a FADC, which is a focus attack dash cancel. Focus attack dash cancels are where you cancel a move by using your focus. I'm not going to go too much into this, but basically your character will flash yellow and look like that. You're actually using 2 bars. If you look at my meter, I just use 2 bars then by doing a focus attack to cancel out of the move into a dash. Now that allows Juri to cancel her fireball into her Ultra, which is going to look a little bit something like this. Now that by itself is pretty spiffy. You can also use that as part of a combo. So you can jump in and use it as a hit confirm, because the fireball itself is safe on block. So if they block it, you can just do the fireball and leave it there. But if it connects, you can cancel the fireball into the Ultra. And there we go. Now, the downside to this move is that it's quite complicated. It is definitely not a beginner's move, because you're cancelling a fireball into a dash, and you're cancelling that dash into an Ultra. So the movement requires a fair bit of gymnastics on your part in terms of the inputs, because you basically need to do a fireball. As soon as you do the fireball, you need to hit focus tack. As soon as you hit focus tack, I just got mail. As soon as you hit focus tack, you need to do a dash, and as soon as you've done a dash, you need to do an ultra. So that's quite a lot of movements in less than a second. So it's definitely not something for beginners, and even after you do it, the timing window for it is incredibly small. You can get blocked very easily, even if you're 1 or 2 frames behind in your timing. So it's an advanced move, and it's one that I've never really much cared for, just because it is so difficult to actually pull off that it's very situational, because you need to be jumping in, and you need to have a fireball stored to actually make this move work. So again, look, if you feel like you can do this, if you feel like you want to do this, this is a great move for basically the least amount of meter, because Juri has no setups for her ultra move which do not require meter at all, period, except for a dive kick, obviously. So this is basically one of the best ways to do it if you want to get a lot of damage. Now, having said that, this is Ultra, and we have access to red focus tacks. Because of that, we now have a much easier option for Juri if you want to spend 1 more bar. Because now you don't need to use a fireball, you don't need to use anything else except for a bread and butter combo, which looks like this. So for the price of 3 meters instead of 2, we've now basically used a red focus cancel to cancel her pinwheel into a focus attack and just do a ultra straight off that. As you can see, you get slightly less damage. It's 440 versus 488, but ultimately it's pretty much easier to do. And that's just about it for this part of how to use Juri. I really want to thank you guys for watching the video. It's definitely got some good hits for my channel. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate people wanting to see more of this. If you do want to see more of this, if you feel like you really are ready to jump into some more advanced strategies, I may look at doing that in the future. Please leave a comment if you'd like to do so that I know. And maybe I will be seeing you on the next How to Use Juri video. If not, I'll certainly be seeing you guys on the Salty Warrior. Okay? Catch you guys later. Take care.